Welcome to What's the Effie?
What the Effie?
Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome. Today we have a super duper special guest. We have Yasser Hattab with us, and I'd like to say thank you very much for coming. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, I'm the one that's lucky. We're the ones that are lucky. I am very pleased. I know that, we've been talking back and forth since I first started, which has only been but almost 2 years, but not very long. And you have a very interesting story, and you're accomplished, and I love a lot about you. But I'm going to take us back to the very beginning. Oh, hey, there's Mr. Rory. Hello, Rory. Sorry. I just want for you to spend a minute telling us, what were you like as a little tyke?
Man, so growing up in the streets of Brooklyn, New York, where it all started for me. Obviously, I was born in Egypt, in Alexandria, and then I came here when I was a kid.
How old were you?
I was 2 years old. And grew up in Brooklyn, New York. We jumped around everywhere, but we ended up in Brooklyn, New York, and it was great. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. I was the only Egyptian amongst a whole bunch of Italians, and so I grew up loving the culture and living it, But as a kid, I really enjoyed life. I was taking it one day at a time, and I had a good childhood. Growing up with all my friends in the street, and typical New York kids, back in the 80s and stuff. But yeah, we were troublemakers too. We were definitely troublemakers.
Well, are you an only child, or are you one of 12, or talk us a little bit about your family situation? How many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest of 4.
Okay.
We have we had another sister. She unfortunately passed away when I was a kid. But I have a brother and 2 sisters. So the sister, brother, and sister. And the age differences are 9, 11, and 13 years younger than me. So there's a little bit of a gap.
I'm sorry. Oh, does that mean that you were a built-in babysitter?
Essentially, yeah. I was I was the primary babysitter and the secondary father, I guess you could say.
I love it. And what about school? What were you like in school? Were you a math geek? Were you a sports
Oh man,
dude?
I was a troublemaker. I was a troublemaker all the way up until probably 6th grade. Middle school is when I started shaping it up, and starting getting smarter. I was always smart, but I was always playful, I guess you could say the word is. Caused a lot of problems in school, a lot of fights after school. I'll see you after school at 3:00 in the yard, type of kid. Oh well, when you're growing up with crazy people, you have to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But after that, I started cleaning up. I started really getting serious about my education. Ended up doing really well. Went to 2 different colleges, got a master's, got a bachelor's, both in
What did you
business.
study? Oh, both of them in business.
Yeah, both of them in business. And then obviously at 16 years old, I did my first flight lesson. So that was fun. Out of Teterboro, New Jersey.
In it as a little guy, like a child?
So throughout my whole life, even as a kid, I was influenced by aviation, and believe it or not, real estate as well. I have family that are in the aviation world and in the real estate world as well. So it kind of is in the family, not my direct family, not my parents. My father, obviously, he's not in the real estate world at all. But my mother is a business person, and so I attribute a lot of my business learnings from her. Everything from money management to marketing to sales and everything in between, and delivering a great product and service. So,
Nice.
if you listen to this, shout out to you, Mom. And for Dad too, shout out to him for being who he is, a strong guy, supporting us throughout the whole time. And we were a family of six living in a 2-bedroom apartment in New York. So
Oh,
we
boy.
were, yeah. So no, very humble beginnings, no millionaire family, and I wanted to really change that and break the curse, essentially. So, that's what drives me every day. But yeah, my childhood was great. I enjoyed it, you know.
And when you graduated, talk to us. Did you immediately start going in to study being as a pilot, or because you had business degrees? What did you do? How did you get to the beginning of being a pilot and also being in real estate?
Got it. So at 16, I did my first. I had just barely turned 16. Did my first flight lesson. My father, I remember him handing me a check of $150 from his hard earned money to go do my first flight lesson. My introductory. They call it the introductory flight out of Teterboro, New Jersey, and that changed my life. I had an uncle that gave me all his, flight lesson manuals and all that stuff. So I knew all this stuff already getting into there. But at the age of 14, I was a freshman, and I could tell you this: I went to the local high school. It was not well. It did not end well. I knew I needed to get out of there. I got held up at gunpoint.
What?
Yeah, by three guys that wanted to take my wallet, and they took a whole bunch of stuff from my bag and stuff. So I knew that wasn't a place where I wanted to be. I played football on the team, and I had to leave all that behind and go to focus on my aviation stuff. So at the age of 15, I ended up at aviation high school. So shout out to all my friends and alumni, graduates
Well,
from aviation
high school.
So what is aviation high school? Aviation high school is where I thought that I was going to go and learn how to be a pilot. In reality, I actually went and learned how to be an aircraft mechanic. So I got something called an airframe and
One is
power
in
plant.
the plane, the other one's underneath.
Right. So I figured, you know what, I'm doing it. I might as well, because that was the plan, was to go to do flight school and stuff. But I was still young. You need to be 17 to be able to get a license anyway. So I was like, you know what, let me go to aviation high school. I enjoyed it. Took a standardized test, passed it, and all the years of studying actually paid off. Ended up getting accepted to high school, and immediately I was, turning wrenches and learning wood shop, and so I got the technical skills as well down. I did really well in aviation, and around 16 years old is when I did my first flight lesson. After that, I just took off. Went to Baruch College in the city, Bernard M. Baruch.
Mm-hmm.
I got my bachelor's in operations management. It's a BBA. That was pretty cool because I learned all about business, and so I had already started learning about business. When I was younger, I was selling stuff, left and right, and I was a hustler, I guess you could say. After that, I applied everything I learned. One hand fed the other. Worked for the airlines right after 9/11 and jumped right into real estate right after 9/11. So that was pretty interesting time.
You weren't hesitant after 9/11?
You know what, Effie, I get that question a lot on a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of stuff in my life where everybody's like, man, are you sure you want to do that? And I never listened to anybody. I listened to what was in here and what's in here, and it has never let me down, and so I don't go based on what people tell me, or what they don't tell me in some cases.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you were afraid, because they did try to hijack that,
Yeah, but that's, everything comes with risk, right? You just have to kind of manage the risk. Keep in mind too, I was the guy that was not, my people were being attacked, if you know what I mean. We were being targeted, and so I went into an industry that was really not happy about me and what my origins were, and I didn't care because I don't have anything to hide. I know that I enjoy what I do. I enjoy business, I enjoy real estate, and I enjoy flying. So, and that's why after all these years, I'm still around in the aviation world and real estate world.
All right. I love it. So, talk to us a bit about how you went, you got your degrees. And then how did you get into the real estate part? Because now I can visualize you actually having gone through mechanic school. I can see you kind of getting in, saying, no, I'm going to get in that plane. So you did. But how did you get from into real estate? And
Got it. So at 18 years old and probably 3 days, I took the New York State real estate salesperson exam.
wow.
And yeah, I had been studying for it around 17 and change, and then I just jumped right into it and took it the minute I turned 18, which is the legal age. After that, I started working for several brokers, just kind of bumping around, trying to find my spot in the real estate world. And then I ran into a broker that was probably the biggest broker in New York. I ended up working for him for a little bit, and I took off from there. I started showing houses for other agents. I started, then I started getting listings and stuff. So I got really busy, and this is like right after 9/11, you would think that, tragedy happened, real estate was dead, but it was actually the opposite, which was kind of strange. So we got really busy in New York.
Is it because people were getting out, or were people still coming?
People were kind of relocating. Well, it was a mix of a lot of things. But yeah, the majority of it was people leaving New York. The same people I grew up with. The same people that owned a lot of these delis in New York and these pork stores and all the good stuff. But a lot of them were moving out of New York because they were like, all right, that's enough. I can't raise my kids here anymore. So that's where the listing opportunities came from. And that's actually how I got into, my eyes were exposed to the investing world as well, learning how to, run rental properties and all that stuff. So one hand washed the other, and I really got into it. I was really enjoying it, So.
Interesting. So, and you were also starting to fly at this point?
I was going through lessons. I did have my license, but as an airline pilot now, I could tell you there's so many different levels to flying. You start off with your private pilot license, which is typically, just like a driver's license. Anyone could go up and rent a plane out, like Hearst or Avis or any of those rent-a-car places. You could do the same thing with that private pilot license. After that, I got into the instrument rating, flying around with the instruments with the hood over, and you could fly in weather pretty much. You don't have to visually have everything in sight. Then multi-engine.
Oh, I can see the parallels here.
You see the parallel, right? Yeah, multi-engine, multi-family, right? So, got into multi-engine. So there's so many different levels to it. Then there's commercial, and then you got where I'm sitting on right now, which is airline transport pilot. It's called the ATP, and then you need that license now to be able to fly for the airlines. Back then, you didn't need it when I had that.
Interesting. So, was it like full-time flying and then working with real estate in between, or?
Yeah. So, I got my first airline job in 2008, and I left New York with my ex-wife at that time. Well, she was my wife at that time, and we ended up setting our roots down in Dearborn, Michigan. And so I was 15 minutes away from Detroit Metro Airport, flying for a carrier that was known as Northwest Airlines, Airlink. So it was the regional side of Northwest Airlines, which obviously we know now Northwest Airlines merged with Delta. And so we became one big happy family. But I was flying those small regional jets coming in and out of Detroit, and I was really enjoying my life. And that's actually how I got into the airline business. But that's also how I really learned about my passion, which is foreclosures, and
How?
I learned all about it in 2008, Michigan.
Okay. It's because of the 2008 crash.
Correct.
Did you go through it yourself? I mean, how did you get in it? Like,
I personally didn't. So I work with an appraiser, a general appraiser. I learned how to work with REOs, real estate owned, bank owned type of properties.
Mhm.
And essentially I was learning the ropes about, I was the guy being sent out to value these properties,
Okay.
before they were supposed to be like, listed or sold on the market.
At,
Uh,
at auction.
at auction. Yeah. Well,
So
no,
you were
actually,
working with the
so
banks.
bank owned is actually like for an auction happened.
Mhm.
The homeowners are still there, but the minute the auction happens, and let's say there's no uh, bids, the bank ends up owning the property if nobody else buys it. So
Okay.
that's how you end up with bank owned properties. So I was the guy that was going in and valuing these properties
That
so
they
that
ended up with.
so that they could be all sold on the bank owned auctions now.
Oh,
So there's two types of auctions. There's a foreclosure auction, then you have a bank owned auction.
those must be interesting.
Oh,
Do they sell them in volume?
oh my goodness. Yeah, we were busy. I mean, we were really busy. It was insane. I was flying during the day, during the night. So I did something called high speeds, meaning like I would take the last flight out and first flight back in. It was a quick overnight, very quick. Some of them are not even legal anymore. Um, and it was very quick. I mean, you'd be like behind the doors maybe 4 or 5 hours if you're lucky. Um, Between those, during the days when I actually got into the whole, doing the real estate business and really learning how to work in the business and stuff. So yeah, Dearborn is awesome. I lived right on Manor Street. So but yeah, so that's kind of how I balance both, and it's been like that ever since, between flying and real estate. One hand, and they're actually pretty well tied together, Effie.
How?
So with airlines, we work off of checklists, right? And I
Okay.
believe, obviously checklists are written. We're taught this, and we teach this to our pilot students as well. Checklists are there
Mhm.
for items that could potentially kill you,
Mhm.
right? If you miss an item, it could potentially kill you down the road. In real estate, it's the same way. And that's actually how I run my operation with checklists, right? To make sure that we are not missing anything. Because, yeah, nobody's going to die in real estate, but we could miss something that could cost us a lot of friggin' money,
Mhm.
right? So that's why that's one of the overlaps. The other one is obviously timing. Airlines work on time,
Yep.
on time departure, on time arrival. We're all big on time. So, and we're down to the minutes sometimes,
Oh, of
down
course. If
to,
we get
right?
off 5 minutes early, we're like, woo!
Let's go,
If we're
right?
5 minutes late, we're like, 5 minutes here, and then what on the other end? Huh?
Right. So if you think about it from the real estate side, now you have times where you have inspection contingencies and certain timelines that you have to meet, right? That you have to abide by. So if you're not abiding by them, then you lose track of time, and now it's going to affect you financially or even worse, legally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of pilots actually make very good investors and real estate professionals because of that discipline, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
from the airlines. The other people that are really good at real estate, believe it or not, military people, they're big on time too, right? So that's why I love working with veterans. If you're a veteran, shout out to you, and thank you for your service, because
Yep.
I love what you guys do. Yeah, so that's why there's a lot of correlation between both fields, pretty
I
much.
hear you. That is very interesting. Um, so you got out there and you were pricing or assessing houses for the banks, but there's a little bit of a step there between going into foreclosure. You're on kind of like on not the wrong side necessarily, but not it. What explain?
I like to see it as I'm on the late side, not the wrong side, the late side, right? But back then it did feel like the wrong side. And it took a family being evicted from their house that made me realize that I got to help these people out before they get to this point.
Did you see it?
I did. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It is heartbreaking seeing people's lives um, being tossed out on the lawn is the worst feeling ever. I can only imagine. I've never gone through it, but I was there watching this. And because I was there just as a neutral party, I didn't really work for the bank. I mean, the bank hired us to do
Mhm.
our job, you know. But it's not like I'm the guy that was going in removing them. But I might as well have felt that way. I might as well have been the guy removing them. And I made it my life mission after that to learn everything I know about foreclosures, short sales, loan modifications, you name it, everything. I made it my life mission after that I was not going to let any family down that is going through foreclosures.
So you would have left the bank and gone into this side of
The
um,
family side.
yeah, of trying to stop them.
Yep.
Um, how did you do that at the very beginning?
Oh,
Because I mean, you were just one person, and when you're, doing it for the bank, in a way, you've got the bank behind you. Like they've got this big machine. Um, did you just quit and then try to figure out in the real estate arena, how do I approach um, people who are in foreclosure? How did you make that transition? It sounds like it would be not quite just like I drop my um, equipment here, I'm going over to the other side. It's not doesn't seem like it'd be quite that straightforward.
yeah.
How did you get there?
The answer is very subtly. Um, I had to kind of, I believe in balance. You know, you think of the world, the way the world works, there's balance: hot, cold, right, left, up, down, you know, sky, ground, right? So I figured, let me get some balance here. And the way I did it was I started going to the library. I started learning everything about, I knew everything I could learn about foreclosures, connecting with the right people, you know, reaching out to foreclosure attorneys and asking them questions. All right. After that, it started making sense to me. I didn't have any answers. All I knew is that I wanted to get to where I wanted to get to, meaning helping people out. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And
Okay.
so I was going to figure out a way because this was here and this was here. And so what ended up happening was I actually slowly transitioned away from taking more jobs and more towards, let me start working with these people who are going through foreclosure. So that required a lot of calling, a lot of door knocks, a lot of people telling me F you, a lot of people slamming their doors in my face. Um, I mean, you name it. But I knew it wasn't personal.
Yeah, I'm sure you realized that. But did you have anybody guiding you? Were you part of a group, or did you find a course, or did you just, with the knowledge that you have, go out?
I learned by doing. That's how I do it. I
Hmm.
learned, give me just 20% of the information and I'll act on it. And that's exactly what I did. I bumped around a lot. I
Hmm.
learned by mistakes, a lot of failures. Oh my God. I let a lot of people down on the way, you know, doing that. But when I got stuck, I would usually reach out to my network. And my network is like, you know, foreclosure attorneys and investors that were working with foreclosures and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean that was really my thing. That's actually how I do everything. Give me just enough information and I'll pull the trigger and I'll figure it out as I go, you know? And so that's how I got into it. And eventually what ends up happening was that back then I end up leaving the REO world altogether. I was like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And it was at that time is when I started sleeping at night. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that's
Yeah,
important.
even though you didn't get them there, and even though you weren't the one that was kicking them out, after having seen that, you probably did realize, like, I'm on the side though, like I'm working for these guys. It probably did make it difficult, I'm sure. Um, yeah. And how did you go from? How did you grow in the foreclosure area? Like, what was the path like? Obviously, it was difficult at the beginning, and you got a lot of "What the effing are you doing? How are you effing doing it? Why are you effing doing it?" All of that. But um, once you started to get into a rhythm, did you start to build a team? Or you've been in sub two now a while, but you've been in real estate a lot longer. So
Mhm.
talk about how that growth started and what it looked like.
Um, one block at a time is really the way I look at it. One brick at a time. And even though, I've been in it for a while, I still feel like there's still more to do and still much more growth to happen. Um, but it really started with just, it's hard to put a figure on it, or a way of doing it. It just kind of happened, Effie, where every week it was like, I can tell you this: Sundays are my favorite days because Sundays are what set the tone for the rest of the week. And so, let's say I'll give you an insight on what my life typically looks like. Sundays is typically family day, but then at the same time, it's captain day, right? Where I focus on the stuff that I want to focus on for the rest of the week. And essentially, hell or high water, I got to get those things done. I don't care who's in front of me, what's happening. I've done stuff. I've accomplished my goals that week from the
Mhm.
hospital, even. Okay. Because I know that I didn't want to go into the next week without getting these things done. So
Okay.
that applied to the foreclosure. All right. Where this week I wanted to learn how to do short sales, let's say, as a realtor. So I would learn everything. I would, every single minute detail, I would learn it and then immediately apply it the next week. And so that kept on happening week in and week out. And then obviously you read a book, you're like, okay, I know it all, right? And then you go and do it, and you're like, wait, this is not what the book said. So that happened a lot, but that's where the notepad comes in. This is why my team laughs at this, but this is why after all these years, I still write everything down, right? Because I'm still learning,
Mhm.
and I'm always going to learn. So that's what I end up doing. Like, for example, if I'm learning about short sales a couple years ago, I'm like, you know, this is the book about short sales. Okay, great. Let me take my notes down of what I want to do and how I'm going to apply it. Then I find a case that I'm going to work on, a short sale, let's say, someone underwater in their mortgage.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk. And then I talk to the person. Then I learned, wow, whatever's in the book is not what's actually happening right now. So I start penning down all the stuff that I'm learning just by doing it. Okay, so no, going in next week, I'm gonna not make this mistake ever again. And so that's how it worked. It was like week in and week out, and to the point where you just get so engulfed in it that you don't really think about, oh my God, we're 2024 now, you know? So to me, it was kind of like a blur, it just happened.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, so that's one thing, like short sales, but then getting into loan modifications and all the other ways to stop a foreclosure really come in to the
Mhm.
point where now you start connecting. Oh, this happened to me a couple months ago with another family. This
Mhm.
is what I'm going to do to fix it with this family,
Yeah.
and vice versa, pretty much.
What advice would you give to someone who is now thinking, okay, I think I should be looking at pre foreclosures? Let me see. How can I get started? What are my steps? What advice would you give them? And, what would be the important things as far as you're concerned?
That's a good question. The first thing regardless of what field you're getting into, whatever niche you're getting into, do it not for the money.
Right.
If you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason,
Hmm.
right? You need to do it because you think you're going to enjoy it. And who knows, you might try and you're like, hey, this is not for me. I can't put up with. I have a student of mine that recently got into probates, right, which is another jam of mine, and got into it and did his first call and said, bro, this is not for me. I'm like, why? He's like, it's too sad. I'm gonna freaking cry because he got a big heart. And I'm like, yeah, you got to be tough in probates. You kind of have to isolate yourself from the situation, and it's tough. So sometimes you might try something, and then you're not going to enjoy it. But then other times you might actually try it or stumble upon it sometimes by accident. But the point is that you got to do it because you enjoy it. right? If you enjoy something, and I there's something that my father told me growing up. You love what you do, and you do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. Okay. And that's so freaking true. And he said, of course, he said it in Arabic, which is backwards. It's right to left. so, so that stuck with me. And I was a kid. I was 11 years old when I heard this, but it really stuck with me. And sure enough, it has, I'm right here. It has applied to this, the flying, and to the real estate world, to the foreclosures. I enjoy it. So when I get on the call with someone in foreclosure, I know I'm there enjoying it because I'm able to help them out. So my advice to anyone getting into foreclosures, let's say pre-foreclosures, because there's a difference. Foreclosure is too late. Foreclosure is what I was doing back then.
Yes. Yeah.
So pre-foreclosure, if you get into pre-foreclosure, you got to look at, first of all, am I the type of person who is patient? That's one. You need to be very patient in foreclosures. Two, you need to learn just enough. If you are analysis paralysis type of person, sometimes that could actually hurt the people that you are working with. So, and then three, right? You need to be able to have attention to detail. That's like a prerequisite that's a non-negotiable. Because if you miss something during the talks with the homeowner or something on the paperwork that you need to send to the bank, every time you deal with the bank, that's at least a week before you hear back from them. And Effie, we talked about this,
Yeah, I was listening to your program, and this is jumping a little bit, but in case you guys don't know, Yasser is on social media quite a bit, actually. He's in a number of different places. I'll show the sources. And what I've been starting to do is I've been starting to follow this YouTube when he does them live. So you just go to I Am the Property Captain on YouTube and on the streams, and he explains a lot of it. And I like that because if I don't catch it, I can still see it afterwards. And I was taking all the notes of everything that you have to get. So that was very helpful for sure. So if I hear you right, you would say, make sure your heart is in it for the right reason. Make sure you're patient, learn just enough, and get your attention to detail. We have a question from Mr. Rory. He's saying, can you expand a bit more on the business side of helping people avoid foreclosures? So often as investors, we focus on REOs because we can purchase properties at a discount. It's great that you're helping. So on the business side, how would you,
Great. So on the business side, you help enough people out. One of our mentors, Mr. Pace himself, says you help enough people out, the money's going to come, right? It's going to come one way or another. So as a foreclosure investor, let's say, your focus should not be just on the numbers. Your focus should be on solving a problem, right? From the business side, what we do is we lead with value first. And I say this, if you guys like what Effie says, it's on my YouTube. We break all this down and how we approach people in foreclosure. We don't knock. Let's say I'm knocking on a door. I'm not going to knock on a door and say, "Hey, you want to sell your house?" It's you could try it, but you're not going to get any good results. I could tell you that. I could promise you that. Actually, what we do is we want to lead with value first. All right. So one of the first things I typically talk about is, hey, do you know that you may be going through something with the bank? I help people and families. I always say families. I always help families who are going through something with the bank to see how we could get the bank off your back. And then I always end up with a open-ended question. Hey, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Out of curiosity, what are you guys doing to mitigate that or work around it? Or to solve it, whatever the words are, right? And it really does come down to the value part, because what you're trying to get to is it's like a puzzle, Rory. So you're trying to piece the puzzle pieces together, how they got in foreclosure, how long they've been dealing with it. What are they going to do if they don't solve it? What are they going to do if they solve it? Where are they going to go if they can't solve it? So you're asking all these loaded, open-ended questions to kind of get a good idea of, where you're going to be to be able to help them out. All right. You also want to come down to the whole, I can tell you this, 8 times out of 10, they want to keep their house. That's great. All right. From the business perspective, what we're looking at is solving a problem. And if we don't make money today, it'll be an intrinsic value being known as a foreclosure specialist. All right. But what we also do is plant the seed that, hey, if these options don't work out, whatever options there are, loss mitigation, any kind of loss mitigation options, I want you to know I still got your back. And I'll offer to buy your house after. But I don't want to start with that. Let's start with trying to keep you in your house first, which is the goal. And how you say this is very, very important, right? Because your genuinity will show. People pick up on energy like that, right? So that's typically what I do first. I lead with value, try to piece the puzzle pieces together. It's essentially you're being a detective. If you watch any of those, first 48, I mean, my partner and I, that's all we watch. We're natural problem solvers. So you want to piece the puzzle pieces together, try to get, a bigger picture of what's happening, how they got there and all that. Then you say, hey, if those options don't work, what's your plan? And you want to be there throughout the whole process. So one of the other requirements, I talked about 4. The 5th one, you have to be a follow-up master in foreclosure. A lot of people don't have the tenacity or the patience to follow up. Yeah, Columbo. I love it. So you need to have that tenacity of it's not over until it's over. This is why I have stuff like this on my board, to remind myself and my team, hey, we're here to serve first. I serve God, and through me, God serves other people. Okay. And that's how I look at it. So we always remind ourselves, me and my team, we got to serve, because if we don't, if I slack off one day, people are counting on us.
Yeah.
Right?
And one day can make a difference. It can be
exactly
too late.
So if you kind of slack off on your follow-up, it may be too late. And that family was waiting on you, whether they know about you or not. That's crazy to think about it. Whether they know about you or not, you owe them that follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
very good point. Very good point. So Josh asks about what kind of stage of grief do you see most before they decide to do something?
Oh, man.
I imagine that, if you go too early, they're like, what's the big deal? It's the first notice, and it's a road, and they may not realize that it's not as long as they think. I don't know. So where do you see them?
So grief is a funny thing, Effie. People passing away. This is why foreclosures and probates fit hand in hand, because it's essentially the same type of grief. For those who are on the call, if you don't know the 5 stages of grief, if you want to look them up, but pretty straightforward. Denial, then anger, then bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And whether you lost a loved one, whether you're going through foreclosure, whether you're going through financial issues, marital issues, it doesn't matter. Human grief is human grief. And so every one of us goes through that. The last time you lost someone that you love, you went through that. All right. So you have denial. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe after all these years, I spent my hard-earned money getting this house and raising my kids in it. Now I'm in foreclosure. I can't believe this is happening. This can't be happening to me. This is a dream, right? After that, anger. They take it out on everybody, including the person that knocks on their door. Right? And you need to be smart enough to understand that. So most people, by the way, all right, I don't know who asked that. I think it was Josh.
Gosh, yeah.
Josh, by the way, most people are stuck in those first two stages. Always. Your job as someone who is a foreclosure investor and specialist is to get them through the other stages as quick as possible, but without pushing them, right? Because you need to go based on their pace and the bank's pace.
Yeah, I was
Right?
gonna say it might be a little different than the bank, though.
So that's where the balance comes in. You're balancing their grief versus the bank's speed. Now, this also depends on where you are operating. If you're focused on a state that's judicial, where the foreclosure has to go through court, you're talking about a little bit of time versus non-judicial like Georgia, where it happens like that in 30 days. The minute they're going to foreclose on you, it's 30 days. 3 notices in the mail. No, 3 notices in the mail and in the newspaper, in publications, so that they make a public notice. We're going to foreclose on 123 Main Street. Then they foreclose on you. So it happens a lot quicker in non-judicial states where there's no judge involved, no court involved. So that really depends on where you're at. But everyone goes through that grief process. And that's what I mean. Your job is to get them to there so that you kind of be their guide in that sense. You know, in the bargaining stage, if I just catch up on the mortgage, then I promise I'm gonna make continuous payments and never go through this again. It doesn't happen like that. Okay. And that's where you have to, as a professional, real estate professional, you have to kind of manage your expectations to let them know. And I use a lot of third-party stories. I use other families. Sometimes I even connect past families with future families to talk to each other.
Really?
To kind of be there as moral support.
Wow.
Kind of like, AA.
So helpful.
Yeah. So that's thinking outside the box. So that's number 6. That's number 6 requirement. You need to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
All right. And so if you are cookie cutter, there's no such thing as cookie cutter in foreclosures. Yeah. Every situation is different, because the minute I start working with the homeowner in foreclosure, we're opening up the finances. I need to know how much they're making, how much they're spending, because guess who wants to know that? The bank. That's how we're going to know how to stop. So I'd have them print out everything, put everything on the table or in a file or upload it online. And then number 7 is where it's required, being a babysitter. Because of the grief stages. Mm-hmm. People who are in grief are tough to work with. And that's why the patience comes in. And so being able to understand that and being on top of them, you have to be a babysitter with foreclosure people, even probate people going through probate, because they may have lost someone very close to them. So you just have to be really patient and on top of it when it comes to that. So.
Wow. And I already kind of heard this because I watched your last video, but how do you decide if it's, something that would be a deal? Great.
I love it. So if you like what Effie is referring to, for everyone on the call, if you have not seen the latest Foreclosure Pro Tips series, which is episode 5 with myself and Mamadou Diallo, my brother, go ahead and do it. Do yourself a favor and go ahead and do it. We break down a Texas deal that we're working on. It comes down to 2 things in a nutshell. It comes down to how much is it going to cost me to get into this deal? If, let's say, I go through the whole process and the homeowner's like, look, nothing's working, just buy my property. Now I'm going to run my numbers. And hopefully you would have, if you're a smart investor, you should know these numbers in the back of your head before you get into it to begin with. Don't give people false hope either. All right. So the first one is entry fees. How much out of pocket it's going to cost me to get into this deal up front and later on when I buy the property for furnishing and renovations and all that. Cash to the seller, if we're ever giving cash to the seller, all that stuff. And in that video, I explained 8 entry fees that you need to account for. A lot of people don't think about these things, but it includes closing costs and renovations and cash to seller and due diligence. So do yourself a favor and watch that video on my YouTube. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Effie,
Well, you know,
Uh,
it fit right in here, and I really, I found it very helpful. So of
love it.
course, I want to put a
I'm
little.
glad that you're getting value from it. I'm glad that everyone's getting value from it. We went all out. We said, hey, let's gloves off. Let's go. You know,
Mhm.
the second thing is we look at the ability to cash flow. All right. And when I mean cash flow, I mean also flipping it and making a profit if you are a fix and flipper, because you could still pick up stuff that's pre-foreclosure to
Mhm.
flip it into a beautiful retail property on the market. So we look at cash flow, meaning profitability. All right. Am I going to be able to cash flow on a monthly basis if I buy and hold it? What is my exit strategy? Am I turning it into a long-term rental? Am I turning it into an Airbnb, a midterm rental, sober living? All right. You know, I know that's your jam. And co-living, right?
Co-living. Yep.
Yeah, that's your jam, right? So how can I maximize my cash flow? But then also, if I'm flipping it, is there enough profit ability built into the deal? Now, something about pre-foreclosures is that sometimes, I don't know our audience, but I'm going to say this, sub 2, sometimes you're able to get into sub 2 on these deals at such a deep discount, it's not even funny. Why? Because you worked throughout the whole process of trying to have them save their property. But sometimes it doesn't. Some people are just mentally checked out from their property. You want to be there to be able to collect on that. All right. And what we do also, depending on the numbers, we give the money to the homeowner as well. We give them some money in their pocket so that they can move on with their life. You know, moving expenses, stuff like that. You have to have a heart in business. That's why I was able to make it 22 years. So, so care about people the same way you care about your business. You know, if you care about people, the business will work. You know, it's as simple as that. So that's, you know, those are the two things that we look at. We look at how much money up front
Mhm.
that's going to affect my return on investment. All right. And then also the profitability, right? How much am I going to be bringing in on a monthly basis or even on a one-time basis as a flip, let's say.
Mhm.
So those are the two centers that we look at, the two qualifiers, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
Obviously, you know, we could go into the whole the 5 pillars, but we already know those pillars. So let's keep it like that.
So, out of curiosity, if somebody said, "Where should I be starting? What is the most um, fastest results or the easiest to get into? Where should I be starting?" Because we do have pre-foreclosures, we've got probate, we've got foreclosures, we've got a number of different strategies. Which one would you guide them to if they were like, "All right, I want to get in here. I want to make an impact, but I also need to pay for my family." So, where do you think I should start? What would you say? How?
I'm a firm believer of, like what I said earlier, it's get 20% of the information. So a lot of the information is online.
Mhm.
Okay. So I would start with looking up your local rules and regulations when it comes to foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, right? We're here in New Jersey. So first thing, you know, New Jersey, even as a fairly new market to me a couple of years ago, first thing I did was I checked up New Jersey laws about foreclosures. I need to know my timelines, right? When can the bank start the foreclosure? How long does, you know, the foreclosure last? For example, in New Jersey, the defendant, because it's a lawsuit, the defendant, aka the borrower, is allowed 2 postponements. And so another word for postponement is stay. 2 stays,
Mhm.
right? Essentially, they're allowed to stay in the property. That's how I teach it to my students. So I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do my research about, you know, how my local market works or my target market. So one thing I would do, first thing I would do is take a look at the target market and their foreclosure laws, even probate laws. 2, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. So I would start reaching out and talking to foreclosure. And if you're going into probate attorneys. Okay. Those are really some of the best people because obviously that's what they do. That's what their business is revolving around.
How do you reach out to them and get their assistance? I mean, they're pretty busy, and we like to usually lead with value, but I'm not. How do you see that happening?
So I was just about to get into it. So I love that. I love that question. That's a very good question. I get this a lot. A lot of people tend to forget that attorneys are still business owners. They're entrepreneurs. They're running a business. It just happens to be a legal business. So every business has a weak point or a need. Okay. Sometimes that need is physical. Sometimes it's mental, financial, whatever it is. All I do is leading with value. For example, if I'm reaching out to a probate attorney, I just did this actually the week before. It's a local probate attorney. I had someone I was working with on a probate, and the lady, really nice lady, older, she's like, hey, my husband passed away. He was in the military, all that stuff, and he passed away 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, how did the probate process go? And she's like, I haven't even started yet. I'm terrified. And I felt bad because she's still going through grief. I could tell she was going through grief. And I was like, hey, if I connect you with someone that I know, were you willing to work with them? And she's like, absolutely. I need all the help I could get. So I picked up the phone and I called all my probate attorneys that I know. None of them were available. So I didn't stop there. All right. Because I want you to write this down, guys, whoever's listening to this call. By any means necessary. If you were to live your life one way today, moving forward, by any means necessary. Okay. So what I did was by any means necessary, I'm actually going to get this lady a probate attorney that I know is going to work with her and get her past the grief and putting the house behind her. So I reached out. We in my community, we talk about GTS. GTS is Google that. You know what the S stands for. All right. So
Stuff.
Stuff. Yeah. Google that stuff. So Google that stuff. Right. And what I did was I went to Google and I searched for probate attorney in my area. I looked at reviews and I found one that had 20, 30, 40, 50 reviews. And they were all good stuff. She did this. She did that. I'm like, okay. Picked up the phone. Got the paralegal. Hey, my name is Yasser. I'm a local. By the way, I'm licensed as a realtor too. So in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So I said, hey, this is Yasser Hatab. I'm a licensed realtor and a foreclosure specialist and a probate specialist working in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I actually have someone that needs to work with you guys. I don't know who you guys are. You guys don't know who I am, but I found you online. And I'd like to pass this person along if you guys will allow, help her out. What's the situation? All that stuff. And she started taking notes about the lady. I gave the paralegal the lady's phone number. And I told the lady this, of course. And then I connected them together. They're working on the case right now. 2 weeks. All right. Right after that, the probate attorney calls me the next day and says, thank you. Leaves me a beautiful message. I was training a door knocker in our office and I get a beautiful message. You're amazing. Thank you for connecting me with this person. All right. We're taking care of her right now. I would love for you to share some information about what you do as a probate specialist, because that's a certification. And that's it. Of course, I missed the call because I was training a door knocker. So I called her right after. I was like, hey, so-and-so, look, it's my pleasure to connect with you. I'd love to swing by your office. I've yet to do it because I've been so busy and she's been busy too. But I connected with her today and I said, hey, Are we going to make this happen or what? She's like, absolutely. I want you to swing by on Thursday. Let's talk. All right. So that's what I mean by leading with value. She give people something because they're still an entrepreneur. A lot of people think attorneys are these things that are like unreachable and untalkable, and I don't even know if that's a word, but but at the end of the day, they're still entrepreneurs. They're still a business owner. So lead with value. So that's what I would do. Reach out to these people. All right. And if it's a foreclosure attorney, same thing. I always ask with questions. I call them dummy up questions. Hey, I'm new to this. Sometimes I do this. If you're new, go ahead and do this. Hey, I'm new to this industry when it comes to foreclosures. All I know is that I want to help these people out. And I want to help you out. How can we do this?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. How can I help you help these people out? What do you need in your business? And I'll do it. And I don't want anything from you. Lead with value, because they're still business owners. They're still entrepreneurs that have a need in their business. So I hope that answers the question for a lot of you guys.
Yeah. I think you got that one pretty good. That's pretty cool. And what would you like to leave the audience with? Any advice for 2024, or like, what do you think is going to be happening here in this calendar year, and how are you using that to get ready?
Got it. Man, you asked some really good questions, Effie. I love it.
Thank you.
We have seen now, obviously, as a savvy investor, I look at the market. I look at what's happening, not only the interest rates and what's happening. Obviously, we're going into a election year, right? So all the craziness happens during an election year. All the secrets come out and all the dirtiness and all that stuff, right? But also during an election year, it affects the financial market as well. So as an experienced investor, I always look at what's happening with the financial market, meaning the interest rates. I'm looking at foreclosures. I'm looking at death rates, right? And I'm looking at the stock market. All right. Believe it or not, they may seem like isolated incidents, but they're not. It's one big ecosphere that affects one another.
Why death rates?
So death rates because of the baby boomers. All right.
Oh, I see.
Right now, yeah. Right now we're looking at some big death rates that are coming up, projected, obviously. But because really the baby boomers, so if you guys, and this is available, all this stuff is online. You don't quote me for it. You could see it for yourself. Just Google, GTS, Google that stuff. And look at
stuff.
Yeah, I love that. So I look at the market and where it's going. And I can tell you right now, with the death rates projected to be up and the foreclosure rates, man, the foreclosure, we're coming to an end. I don't know if you know, but we still have a COVID-19 protection that is still in place for FHA loans. That's expiring in October of 2024. And so a lot of people don't know that. They're like, oh, we're over. COVID is done. No, COVID is not done. We still have the after effects of COVID still after all these years, right? During COVID, we had a lot of forbearances. A lot of those forbearances in 2023 died out. And then people were found in their present position, right? Not making enough money to cover their mortgages. So no protections, so these protections are wearing off now. And so we're seeing an uptick in foreclosures as well. And so if you're getting into this, take a look at the market. Take a look at what's around you. Pick something that makes sense to get into. And I hope with this call that I'm able to motivate you guys to kind of take a look at pre-foreclosures and probates, because we're going to need a lot of help. I'm only one person. And I don't care what they say. They say one person can change the whole world. That's not true. I'm only one person, and I can only change a part of it, So I need all the help I could get. And by the way, Effie, if anybody's on the call that wants to join my team, I would love to have them. I'd love to work with them.
Wow.
I'm looking for a solid 5.
Wow.
That's how much
That's
help we need right now.
fantastic.
Yeah. So
Wow, that is really, really, really fantastic. I'm trying to figure out how would they reach out to you.
very simple. Very simple.
Uh-huh.
My name is right there, right at the bottom there.
Yep.
I am the property captain. Reach out to me on any of the social medias.
Okay.
And I'll be more than happy. Just put the word pre-foreclosure. And so I know it's,
Pre-foreclosure.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I actually shouldn't put this. Well, maybe I should. It'll be, well, I can just see this 3 years down the road. I saw you were offering a position for 5 people. And you're like, yeah, that was 3 years ago.
This offer is only open until now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, actually, that maybe I won't. It's kind of funny because I can just see that. Wow, that's amazing. Van wants to know, how do you get certified as a probate specialist, and is it by the state? And I want to go back to those 5 in a minute, in just a second. I know we're over an hour a bit, but do you mind staying?
Of
Just
course,
a few
yeah,
minutes?
of course. I'm here. You know,
Cool.
today is Effie's day. Okay.
All right. Well, let's answer Van's question first.
Awesome. Very, very good question, Van. If we haven't connected, reach out to me. I'd love to connect with anybody that's on the call. Guys, I'm reachable. All right. You're not going to get a secretary or anything. You message me, you're going to get me, you know. Van, there's a designation. So I carry 2 designations as a realtor. Okay. One of them is called the Certified Distressed Property Expert, which is essentially a foreclosure and short sale specialist. All right. That's run through a program that's literally called that, Certified Distressed Property Expert by Tony Martinez. He's one of my mentors down in Florida. He's a big time broker. He teaches this stuff day in and day out.
Is that for realtors only?
That's for realtors, but you could also learn if you're an investor as well, because you need to still learn how this thing works. Remember, the more education you get, the better equipped you are with what you need to do. Okay, especially in this field. But then the second one is the Certified Probate Expert. And if you look up Certified Probate Expert on Google, you will find a program out there that actually covers everything that has to do with probates. Okay. And it's essentially a designation and a mentorship that you could get on, finish some courses, and really get to, hit the ground running. That comes from that's connected with, I don't know if we should do this here, but it's called alltheleads.com, right? And that is actually a probate lead source that a lot of people use. They sell you the data for people who passed away. Sometimes they have real estate, sometimes they don't. We do county records. We do online stuff, like this. So we get our source from so many different places, mainly from county though, because it's fresher.
Yeah. And okay, I'm really appreciative of that. Is the Certified Probate Expert, is that restricted to realtors, or can it be for non-realtors?
Certified Probate Expert is for both realtors and non-realtors. All right.
Good to
know.
And
I got to say this. The way we're going in this market right now, especially with wholesales being illegal, essentially, one of the best things you could do for yourself is become a realtor. And if you're new to the industry as a real estate professional, aspiring to really set yourself up for success and stepping away from all the nonsense, all the naysayers and all the people who say that they do the business but don't do it, right? The best thing you could do for yourself is become a realtor.
Why?
You'll be able to learn everything. As a realtor, there's going to be 2 things I got to say here. Become a realtor because you'll learn how to do the transactions and you'll learn how the real estate market really works. Okay? How buyers work, how sellers work, how title companies work, all that stuff. Okay? But 2, don't just become a realtor by yourself. Join a team. look up some of the best teams out there in your industry or your market and reach out to them and see if you could join them. Why reinvent the wheel when someone already figured it out for you? All you have to do is plug in to a pod and start doing the business and learning it by doing it. A lot of people read a lot of stuff. This is why I operate on 20% information, because I'm able to learn from others by working with others.
Got
So
it.
if you take anything away from this call, those are the two things. Become a realtor, go get licensed, learn, all right? And then 2, join a team. And if you're by yourself as an acquisition person, learning how to be an investor, join a team as well. Learn the business.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you very much. But before we go, I do want you to tell me about those 5 people you're looking for, because I think anyone who's listening, I think they'd be very, very fortunate if they had the opportunity to work on a team like yours. So talk to us about what you're looking for. And, you already said to reach out to you at I Am the Property Captain, and that you're reachable. But what is it that you're looking for? And what would they expect to be doing and such?
So remember those 7 things I told you about?
Mm-hmm.
You wrote them down, right?
Dave?
All right, go ahead and tell me what you got.
I think I have. Are you talking about the being patient, learning just enough, attention to detail, following up, mastery? Is that the list you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to have the tenacity on that. You got to think outside the box, possibly be a babysitter. And you are leading with value, always.
Essentially being a go-getter.
Mhm.
Those are the type of qualities I want in my team of 5. That's literally the job description and the requirements. And as long as you have the right attitude and willing to learn, really from someone who's doing the business day in and day out,
Mhm.
and not just teaching because they don't know, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of gurus out
Yeah,
there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of gurus. But my team, hopefully they're on this call and they're seeing this, they could vouch for what I do, okay, and how I teach them. I teach by doing. I'm in the battleground with you. So those are the requirements. If you are willing to learn, and if you are willing to stick with me and learn the process and learn by doing, I want you reaching out to me. If I have to worry about you kind of babysitting you, and I give you a simple task, and you don't do it, don't bother. Don't bother, because people are what? Counting on us right there. People are counting on us. So I want people who are serious, people who want to help people, because the money comes. All right. And you'll learn. I think it's one of the, I wish I'm doing something that someone never did for me. And that's actually teaching everything that you can learn about the business, especially the foreclosure market or the probate, right? And then also hold you accountable to grow, but also feed into you and your future.
Wow. How fantastic. Do they need to be in New Jersey, or do you do it virtually?
I would prefer New Jersey, because sometimes we meet people face to face. However, it doesn't mean that you cannot join the team. Why? Because this thing can be done virtually, right, as well. What I mean by that is you don't need to be sitting in my office in New Jersey calling a bank. Okay. You don't have to be, you could be sitting, man, I called a bank from halfway across the world, right? It was an expensive call. It was like 5 hours on the call with the bank, but I was stopping a foreclosure. So you don't need to be local. I would prefer that you are. I'm here in South Jersey. Our office is in Haddon Heights, New Jersey. It's a brand new office. Set is pretty big for a lot of people. And that's where the training happens as well. We do weekend events. It's starting up next month. So,
Nice.
But yeah, you don't have to be in person.
Okay. All right, guys, you heard it. Well, I hope that if you can, please drop a thank you for Yasser. And I'd like to say thank you so, so much to everyone for being here. And let us say we shall see you next week.
Adios.
Take care, everyone.